Good evening. Hello. This microphone sounds a little dim. How are those doing? Can I get a little? And the cables are a little short. Yeah. Greetings. Can we get a little signal, more signal on the microphones, or do I need to go over there and raise them? Is there something on board? Hello? Yeah? Oh, look at that. Yeah. Now it's a party. Greetings, everyone. My name is Crispin Freeman. I grabbed the microphone first. That's the only claim to authority that I have. But because someone told me we needed to get started. Welcome to a panel called Intro to Voice Acting. I'm a voice actor. I've been voice acting now for over 20 years. And I also run a podcast on voice acting called Voice Acting Mastery, which you can find in the iTunes Music Store. All right, I've got one fan. Thank you, sir. Thanks for your comment on the blog. So I have been running that podcast since 2011. There are 142 episodes of the podcast, plus there was a sister podcast I was running for a while called Field Report, where I had a bunch of correspondents doing reporting for me as well. There's 36 episodes of that, and I'll just summarize that all in the next 5 seconds. But yes, so that's, I've tried my best to share information on that. Some of you might be familiar with the podcast. But I have some lovely ladies with me here as well, and I'll let them introduce themselves, and they can introduce you to voice acting as well.
Woo. Let's go. Hello. I feel like I need to talk like this after following Crispin, and to have my serious voice on. It's my female Crispin.
Hi, you guys. I'm Monica. I sound nothing like that.
I wish I sounded like this. I'm sure my fiance does too.
Yeah, I've been voice acting 20 years. Jeez, y'all, it's a long time. I've done a lot of stuff. So if you ask me what I've been in and I ask you what you've seen, I'm not being a douche. It's just easier to narrow it down that way. I've voiced more anime than anybody else in the United States, and I'm working on the world. World domination. I know, it's crazy. It's really, really crazy. So, yeah, and I'm excited to chat with you guys about voice acting today. It's gonna be awesome.
This microphone will need a little help.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3. What?
This will be a panel on mime.
Here, somebody get the microphone.
What you really want to know is, this is actually my real voice.
Ooh! It works! I can do Monica's voice.
I do Kristen's voice. I don't even know what my voice is. This is my voice. Hi, you guys. I'm Karen Strassman. I'm a fellow voiceover actor. I also do on-camera stuff as well. You can see me in Preacher, that just came out on AMC, where I play a German evil scientist. It was super duper duper fun. And I've been voice acting for 30 years. And yeah, I'm not as prolific as Mademoiselle, but because she's the most prolific person in the world, I think. But it's kind of the same way. Sometimes I forget things I've done, or so again, I'm not being brutal if I go, what was that? And a lot of you probably know more about what I've done, so you can educate me. I'm extremely, extremely lucky to get to make my living doing what I love, and super grateful for it every single day of my life. And during this panel, if we can do anything to contribute to you, to entertain you, to answer questions, anything to make this hour with us more fun or useful, We're at your service.
Hi guys, my name is Kira. I've been voice acting for about 10 years, so I'm actually the baby on this panel, which I'm not used to. The role that I'm probably most known for is 2B in Nier Automata. I also play Falk, who's one of the DLC characters in Street Fighter V, and Trucy in Ace Attorney, Edna in Tales of Zestiria, Erika and Katarina in Fire Emblem Heroes, and then I just got a brand new role announced this morning that I'm so excited about. I'm Talim in Soul Calibur 6.
I'm not just poorly cosplaying Team Skull, like I said before. Though it would be appropriate. I am Lisa Ortiz. Once again, I'm also over 20 years in voice acting. I think I'm the only currently still New York contingent, because some of us have gone out over there. You guys know me from, I usually just list the stuff that I've done before, and there's a lot of stuff that's going on now. But you guys first knew me as Lena Inverse in Slayers, and thank you. Lotus War. I've done a bunch of stuff in between, including Winx and a bunch of other things. Most currently, I've done Gundam Seed and a couple of other stuff. I'm also the voice director on Pokemon Sun and Moon, as well as a bunch of things on there. I also teach acting and dubbing at NYU Stone Street. So that's one of the things that I do over there. I usually do a master class every semester, a couple of them throughout with their students. And that's it. And I also have a cold, so this may come on and off. This is the closest you will ever see me as cosplay. And if I can find myself a pair of ears by the end of this, I will. But I might not wear them.
So I think we'd like to open it up to questions. It looks like we've got a cordless mic there, and why don't we put that in the middle of the aisle. If you have a question you'd like to ask us about voice acting, walk, do not run, to the aisle there and line up and go ahead. He's creeping. I say, yes, I did. And you're walking with style. Hang on a second, we don't quite have the microphone up yet.
Is there a switch on?
Let's check, shall we?
Is it on? No, it's wireless. It's got a switch on it somewhere. Yeah?
That's how it
I don't need a mic.
We can put a man on the moon. That's why we should have put a man on the moon, because now all you say is we can put a man on the moon.
Why don't we put a man on the Mars?
That's a little harder.
Ooh.
Better get on that fader. Please get on the fader.
Mic check. Better? No. Put your hand. Come on. Work. Yeah, now we're getting somewhere, people. Okay, now we're moving. No. Yes, no. Yes, no. Yes, no. Yup, talking 1, 2, test 1, 2. Testing 1, 2, test 1, 2.
La la la. La la la.
Yup, test 1, 2, test 1,
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
Cool. Now let's go back over here and see if it works. Magnifique, c'est très bien maintenant. Okay, so first question of the day. As a fellow voice actor, I've done my own work as well as small productions. For those who want to do in a different language, where I'm fluent in French, what opportunities?
Tu parles français?
Oui, je parle français.
Ah, c'est génial!
Ah, bonjour, mademoiselle.
Ah, vous êtes français ou
Non.
vous êtes canadien?
Non, je suis américain, mais je suis dans un programme image en français. Toute mon classe était en français. Mon mathématiques, mon histoire, français, sciences,
On peut parler des autres alors.
Eh oui, on va parler et nous autres on va italien.
You totally lucked out that Karen is here. Like,
Yes, my God. But opportunities in a different language or a different country, is it different when it comes to getting yourself out here in the U.S. compared to outside the States? Or is it that same process?
I can answer that.
So there's a couple things, and it's such a cool thing to go after. And I'm going to answer this from a couple different angles. For me, and I lived in France for 16 years, and I'm fluent, yeah. But when I was living in France, I worked mostly in English when I was working in France because they didn't have as many Anglophone speakers. And they're like, oh my gosh, you speak, there's tons of voiceover work for Anglophone speakers. So I find that most of my friends whose maternal language is English, when they go to another country to work, they do better to work in English. When I was in France, I have a little, like, to you guys I sound like awesome. But if there were like a couple French people in the audience, they'd be like, oh, she's so cute, she's so French, she's very good, but her little bit accent is very cute. And so when I'm in France, I can act in France, but usually I won't get hired to play a typical French character. I'll get hired to play a character with a little bit of an accent. Now, being in America, I book more French jobs in America than I ever booked when I was living in Paris. Because for some reason people think I sound really good here. And I try to tell them that I'm not that great, but I get hired. So, but it's interesting to know that when you go to that country and it's not your maternal language, you don't necessarily book work in that language. But if you go to a country, Spain, Brazil, China, as an English speaker, there will be work for you there if you can find the places that are hiring that. Also, one more thing, I work as a dialect coach and I have a lot of foreign actors come to me to lose their accent so that they can work in the American market. Yes. Is that helpful?
So much.
Yeah.
Merci.
That's it? I thought you had another question.
Oh, I did, but I mean, there's a line. So, final question, and then within America too, I know that I've been looking everywhere for work outside of just me working as a photographer and working for the government. Is there like any steps should I take to get myself out there, or should I just grind it out and just hope for a break?
Just not necessarily in French, but just in any language.
And just any language.
Want somebody else to answer?
are your skills professionally competitive?
They can be. I have multiple voice. This is my noble voice, and
Like,
then
can be is not reliable.
this can be that.
I mean, if you're a producer and you're trying to cast something, do you want someone who maybe can do it or someone who definitely can do it?
Definitely, I hear that.
Right. So you have to think from the producer's standpoint. Who do they want to hire?
Someone who's consistent.
Who's
and
professionally competitive? Whose skills are professionally competitive? Where it's
Right.
clear where they can cast them and what they can do with them. So the notion of I'm just going to grind out and wait for a break is like waiting to get on American Idol. And that's not how it really works. I mean, that's the huge fallacy, is that like, well, if I just do this one thing, no. The people who succeed have reliable skills that they can count on over and over again. It's not just because they were discovered, it's not just because they got lucky. They're like, oh, it's an overnight success. They've been busting their butt making sure that their art is good and their craft is good for 10 years or something, and then they're an overnight success. It's like, you have to have professionally competitive skills. And when you develop professionally competitive skills, as Steve Martin would say, get so good that they can't ignore you. If you're that good, people are going to want to work with you.
Right. Now I understand what you're saying. And then in that case, in that point of view, I am consistent with certain voice depending on the character that I'm called to play.
Can you play pretend so believably that people will pay you to do it?
Yes, I have been paid to do so.
Okay. Now the challenge is can you do that with multiple characters?
That's where the practice comes in.
Yes, it does. Acting is playing pretend. Professional acting is playing pretend so believably people will pay you to do it.
Right.
That's your challenge. Your mission, should you choose to accept it.
Can I add on to that? Also, if you do feel that you're at a competitive place, you want to have demo reels. You want to have,
Right.
you want to have your, at least a commercial reel and a character reel. Some people like to have a narration reel, a video game reel, but you want to have reels, and it'd be very, very useful to have a website. Because that, you want to present yourself like a working professional, and if somebody says, okay, well, let me hear your stuff, and you start, making an attachment of something, well, I recorded this in my living room, and so you really want to have professionally produced reels on a website that looks incredibly professional with, and you can look at other professional, voiceover people's website and just see what that looks like. And then if you're ready to put yourself into the market, start with regional agents. Maybe not the big ones, New York, Los Angeles, but start reaching out to regional agents and have them listen to things if you're really at that point. And if you're not, then look at what you need to do with your skills to make yourself a strong actor before recording a demo reel. Are you guys in agreement with that?
If I can add something as well, I'll make it quick because I know we have a line. In regards to the talk about getting a break, overnight success, and all that kind of stuff, I actually wrote a huge essay on this recently. You guys can find it on my Twitter about why I don't personally think that's a good way to think, because like Crispin said, it takes many years for people to kind of get in, and they don't get it from being lucky, it's from working very hard. But you mentioned earlier that you said, well, I can do these different voices. What is your acting background or acting training?
Acting background. I do voiceovers at my church for commercials. I've done multiple plays with a production within here in local DC, as well as my own work. I've script written and voice acted for spin-offs as well.
Okay, yeah, I was just asking that because I notice a lot of people come up and say oh, I can do these different voices, which is cool and good, but it's all about how you are as an actor.
Right. I understand. Well, thank you for your help. Now see you.
Hello, everybody. Much respect to all of you. I'm such a big fan of you all. You've done such a great job at your work, and we as fans are real proud of you. So thank you so much. My question is for you all: if you want to voice a character, a cartoon character, anime character, video game, anywhere, who would it be and why?
So there's a wonderful film called Tokyo Godfathers. And there's a 6-foot-tall drag queen called Hana. I want to be Hana. She's fabulous.
Oh gosh, this is hard. There is a character that I've always wanted to play. I always wanted to play Harley Quinn. Because I play so many psychos and deranged folks that I was like, well, I got the opportunity, very slightly. If you guys are ever in Texas at Six Flags, there is a Harley Quinn Spin Sanity ride. And I am the voice of Harley Quinn for that ride. So now I need to come up with another answer for this question. So I'm sitting here going, but yeah, Harley Quinn, I would love to play Green.
I gotta pause for a moment.
I would play something in my favorite series, and this part hasn't been adapted to be animated yet, but I want to be Jolene Cujo from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
I really don't know how to answer this, because what I would love to have been is something on Skyrim, just because I play it that much. Other than that, I would really love to have a video game that I could play my mother in. I don't think she'll be in anything, but, that's it. So there's no actual character, but I don't know, suddenly she got a little bit even more street. I don't know when my mother became a thug, but it happened here at Anime USA. You all witnessed it.
Okay, I've been doing a whole bunch of mocap recently with Tom Keegan, who's a wonderful director in Los Angeles. Oh my God, he's amazing. And I told him I just recently said, if they ever do a Wonder Woman game, and they have the character of that disturbed German scientist who's trying to kill people, I forget her name. Isabel, you know her, who has half the face that's destroyed. I'd really like to play her in a video game.
Thank you guys so much. And just a quick request for my brother Crispin. Could you, as a voice actor principal, could you say, "Don't make me angry"?
Sure, I can. Next question. You want me to do it now? Okay. As Winston, you said, right?
Yes.
Don't make me angry.
Is this? Okay.
I love your suit.
Thank you.
I know what character this is.
What is it?
It's from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Awesome.
Shameless plug, I'm running a JoJo panel tomorrow at 10. Be there.
This question was kind of already answered, but there was another part of it that I wanted to ask, which was, what is the process of getting roles for voice acting? I already know about having a, for lack of a better term, portfolio, but is there like a website or they listed somewhere specific? Or how do you actively seek out these?
So there is a better word than portfolio. It's called a demo.
Thank you.
And so the idea is that the historical traditional Hollywood model is that you have an agent. The agent gets what's called breakdowns from producers who are looking for talent. The agent then calls in their talent to audition for things. If the producers like the audition, the talent books the part. That's the high level how things historically have been done in Hollywood. And then the internet happened, and things have changed. And so now there's a lot more different things going on. You can now social network and find people who are producing things. You can find independent game developers, you can find student film makers, you can find all sorts of people who are kickstarting their own projects who need talent to work on their projects, in which case you need to be parts of these communities online that talk about these things, websites like newgrounds.com or whatnot, or different voiceover communities and things. What has also cropped up is a bunch of websites that are called pay-to-play. This is voices.com and voice123.com. They have been sort of shady. Ostensibly, they have been absolutely shady. The idea behind them was, we will act as a clearinghouse. Producers will come to us, they will post jobs that they want, and then we will have actors who will purchase membership in order to get access to those auditions. Now this is sort of the reverse of the historical model. In the historical model, your agent only gets paid when you get paid. An agent historically gets 10% of whatever you make on a job. So the agent has an economic incentive to make sure that you are working, right? And if you can't work, then you just don't have a relationship with your agent, and that ends. These websites, these pay-to-play websites, have no incentive to get you work because you're paying them no matter what, whether you're working or not. So they've been milking a lot of people. They've also been embezzling funds where the producers are offering one rate, but then the actor gets paid a lower rate and they pocket the difference. There's been some shady stuff. So I can't in good conscience recommend them because they do shady things. And also one of them is completely anti-union and wants to break all the agents, which is really unfortunate. But what that means is the internet has allowed access to people and creators and ways of networking that was never existed before. And then we're back to the old adage, pounding the pavement. Can you make connections? Can you work with people? Can you find stuff and do stuff? I was working at a summer theater thing, and I was watching anime, and a buddy of mine said, "Hey, you like that anime stuff?" I was like, "Yeah, shut up, I'm watching Evangelion, leave me alone." And he said, I do the dubs in New York. Would you like to come audition for it? How could I have planned that? I don't know. And I said, sure, I'd love to. And then have this little show called The Slayers. And I think the first session I ever walked in, the first voice actor I ever heard voice acting in a booth was this woman. And she was doing Lena, and I couldn't see her in the booth, I just saw the video on the TV. And Lena was doing her thing, and then she messed up her line. And I was like, Lena doesn't mess up her lines! So, but that's called pounding the pavement and trying to get out there and connecting and networking with other actors.
Okay.
I mean, he covered it. I mean, the only thing I would add to that would be, with the, sorry. The only thing I would add to that would be that, with like anime and stuff, I know that a lot of people really want to be anime voice actors specifically, and the one thing that I would say is that if you want to be an actor, be an actor. Do not pigeonhole yourself and say, I only want to do anime, or I only want to do commercials, because that's like being a doctor who only treats stubbed toes. You know what I mean? Like, it's a really very, very specific thing. So just make sure that you're not pigeonholing yourself or keeping yourself in one place. But also know that back when we all started, it was much easier to get that kind of work because it wasn't as popular as it is now. When I started, we started 20-something years ago, like people had to pay way more money for the dub than they did for the sub. So nobody watched the dubs. So you go to conventions and nobody cared that you were there, which was kind of awesome. Because it's like, oh, I can just sit around and nobody cares. But at the same time, that's not the case anymore. So it's a lot harder to break into that particular world now than it used to be. Although all around it's a lot harder to break in now because anybody can go buy a microphone and anybody can be a voice actor. So it is there's a lot more competition.
Okay. The reason I ask is because a friend of mine does the audio drama for the Magic the Gathering card game, and their process was to they have the roles listed on the website, which I forgot. And I probably could never remember it, to be honest. And I just wanted to ask, how is it done professionally? So, thank you so much.
No problem.
I also, shameless plug, I am the founder of one of these communities. It's called Voice Acting Club. Woo! So if you get a chance, voiceactingclub.com. We also have a huge server. We've got over 1,000 people, and we've got, both pros and aspiring people and everyone in between. And we kind of help, I guess you could say, mentor people into sort of, improving their skills and their home setup and all that.
What's the name of it again, please?
Voice Acting Club. voiceactingclub.com, and indie game developers and animators and people making student projects, all this kind of stuff, they sometimes go there and look for talent and stuff. So it's a really great place to kind of just get started and practice and learn about stuff. It's super cool. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much.
Hello all.
Hello.
I'm Michael. I've been doing improv theater for the past 4 years, and I've been really trying to figure out how to build a base upon that. What are some suggestions that you have to go from just improv to other types of theater or acting as well as voice acting?
So you started in improv.
I've been in improv theater.
Well, here's a great thing. You started the hard way. Most people avoid
The
improv.
hardest way. I bow down to. I'm terrified of improv. It's amazing.
I absolutely love improv. I spent many years in dirty clubs in Houston performing for a bunch of drunk people. It's fantastic. I love it. I will say that you've built quite a good base for yourself already, because I would assume that at any point we could throw out a character and you could probably figure out a way to create that character on the spot. And that is something that a lot of actors don't have the ability to do that comes quite naturally with improv. I'd say, have you taken any basic acting classes or anything like that?
I did a little bit of theater classes in high school, but I haven't taken any traditional classes.
Okay.
I'm doing a voice acting examination, I guess.
Okay.
Whatever, to see how well that can market it.
That's awesome. The one thing I would say, and it was kind of like what Kira was talking about earlier, and that we're probably going to say over and over again this whole panel, is that I cannot express the importance of a good, solid acting background. I still take classes with beginning actors because I learned so much, not only from the people teaching classes, but from the other actors. So yeah, just take any class you can get on acting, because you're going to pick up things everywhere you go. That would be my suggestion. How about you?
We were all saying we all still take classes. I took a class from this man years and years ago. I still remember it.
Yeah, I'm in acting class every week. And I'm a coach. like actors, I mean, I'm sure these people do too, I have a waiting list right now for dialect coaching and acting coaching and stuff. I'm a coach, and I like show up rain or shine, no matter what. I show up to my acting class once a week, and you know, it's yeah, you just want to, if you really want to do this, you know, it's not just, you know, I want to be in the booth and I want people to recognize me, but it's like, you just gotta love making believe and that vulnerability and that playfulness so much that you want to make a life of it, or just it's a hobby you love so much that you want to marinate in it, you know, yeah.
So I did an interview with Phil Lamarr, which I think on the podcast, which I think you should check out. And I think you should check out any interview with Phil because he started from an improv background. He was on Mad TV and was doing all this improv stuff, and he parlayed that into a voice acting career. So I think if you sort of study the details of how he made that transition, I think you'll find that very helpful because he does everything now. Phil Lamarr, Samurai Jack, Jon Stewart, Green Lantern, yeah. So, yeah, Phil Lamarr, but yeah, I did like a 5-part interview with him on the podcast, so check it out.
Thank you.
Does this thing work or not? Probably not.
Okay, great.
It's the prosthetics.
Yeah, let's see it. 2 things real quick. When my beautiful girlfriend comes up next, I need one of you to compliment her voice so that she feels better about it. 2, to go make it simple, do you think y'all could say a joke that you particularly like and one of your favorite characters' voices for us?
I love that we're like,
Oh, it's a joke!
the only jokes I've hung out with Greg Ayers for the only jokes I know are really foul.
Are we all about 18 here?
Trying to think of one that would be appropriate.
Think that
I don't know. I'm not sure it's going to help you voice act.
I don't know. Actually, here's a quick question. I've started to get into podcasting myself. I've podcasted with her a few times. What are some just good techniques for keeping your voice like keeping your voice over multiple hour recording sessions? What are some things that you do to kind of help with that? And the jokes thing can come later. I'm sorry. I kind of blindsided with you back, but.
I would say, I'll jump in on this one. When you're working with your voice so much, you want to make sure that you're keeping it in shape. You're doing all those things. Much like everybody here, we all take acting classes. I still take voice lessons every single week for my thing. So you just have to make sure that you're breathing properly, and that's another thing. In addition to acting, you should be taking, if you can take some kind of voice and diction or some kind of singing is very, very good for stuff that you're doing. That also keeps your voice malleable and knowing what your instrument is that you're actually using. So if you're talking also I would say just take, you're closed mic, you're everything is in there. And how long are your podcasts normally?
Typically an hour or 2 per recording session. After 2 hours, typically 4
Okay. But you're not screaming into the mic or anything
No,
like that?
no, unless we're doing a DVD one day.
Well, then there's nothing, we can't help you with that. I know Crispin probably chopped down the mid with this one too, but I know that a lot of stuff, it depends as far as keeping your voice in shape. I know, especially right now because I'm sick, there's a lot of teas and different things that I use. There's elderberry root and different elderberry root I just use for basic stuff, but there's a lot of different ways that you can take care of it, and tea and honey is just mostly about just taking care of your instrument and making sure that you're breathing and your breath control is fine. If you don't support your breath and you wind up doing that's a thing that a lot of people will do when they speak. If you put a lot of pressure on your cords when you're doing work and it's not supported properly, you run the risk of damaging your range and damaging your voice, but that's not something you're going to run into probably having a normal conversation on a podcast.
Right.
But that's really all that I just wanted to say is that make sure that you just know how your voice works and how you can support it.
I'd say warm up too.
Yeah, that was included in there. Yeah.
Just make sure that you're spending time before you actually get on mic and making sure that it's well warmed up because it's dependent upon people's voice. I know people that come walk into the booth and never warm up and they sound great, but for me, where my voice sits, I have to
Especially the higher stuff.
Yeah.
Like the higher. All right.
I just want to thank you for, there's no mic and you just are talking really loud and just really thank you. It's really cool.
I did stage acting in high school and college.
You get it.
Yeah. So, okay, it's Jennifer's turn. Hi, Jennifer.
So, when you're taking over a role for someone else, like a role that's already been established, maybe over just, of course, a few episodes or over several years, is there some sort of pressure to stay close to their performance, or do you feel like you have enough of a chance to branch out and try new things with that role?
Y'all are precious. No.
Isn't she?
Y'all are absolutely precious.
Well, it's funny that you asked that question, because in the latest episode of my podcast, Fred Tatasciore and I go into great depth about the questions of voice matching. Because both he and I have voice matched many different characters, and there's a difference between voice matching somebody in a film, where you're trying to just be a band-aid, where they can't tell that it's not the actor, as opposed to what Fred has to do as Shifu in Kung Fu Panda Legends of Awesomeness, where he's doing a sort of voice match for Dustin Hoffman's character, but it's not completely exactly like Dustin Hoffman, because he has to generate character moments that have never existed before, you know, and he has to carry an entire animated series as this character. And so there's sort of a balancing act that goes there between carrying the torch of the character forwards, like I do voice matching for Orlando Bloom for all the Pirates of the Caribbean stuff and Lord of the Rings, and Disney wants me to sound exactly like Will Turner, even though I may be generating new content. Whereas, you know, when Fred does Shifu, he might modify it a little bit, or it might have a different angle on it. I mean, what James Arnold Taylor is doing as Obi-Wan Kenobi in Clone Wars is slightly different from Ewan McGregor. It's sort of in the same ballpark, but it's got a slightly different slant on it. So you might want to check out that episode.
I know.
Hello. I know that for me, taking over Bulma about 10 years ago was a huge deal because I knew that that was a very beloved show and that I didn't want the change to be so drastic that it took away from Dragon Ball Z Kai. So what I did is I watched Tiffany's performances and really kind of studied so that in the beginning of my transition into Kai, that I was paying homage to her. Like Crispin said, I wasn't kind of just regurgitating her performance. I was taking what she did and then kind of making it my own in a way, but still just staying very true to her voice type and her range. And then as the show progressed and we got into like the Boo saga of Kai and now of course Super, I slowly kind of turned her into my own thing. And of course now with Super, it's all new things. Nobody else has touched it. It's all mine. So it's been liberating, but yeah, it's hard when you have to kind of step into somebody's shoes. And it can be difficult because, you know, Crispin was pointing at is that some people, you know, want it to be exactly on the money and some people don't. And I was very lucky that I was kind of able to kind of make it my own.
I'll just pop in and it's a very, it's very true about as far as matching and to do that. We've been in the position just as a director where we've had to either replace an actor who's gone. I had an actor recently who moved back to Korea, and the policy was that we only record in-house. So the beginning of that is we tried to match, much like what she said, we tried to match as much as we could in the beginning, so there's a lot of listening back and forth. We also did it with smaller characters, like we had Wabafat and things like that. The actress who did that, Casey Rogers, she retired after many years. So it's very recognizable the way she did it. There was no one who could totally match her completely. So we started off and we would, in the beginning, we did it as faithful as we possibly could. And then after a period of what was like 53 episodes, now she does a lot more things that are her own, and she can kind of change it up a little bit. But I think that's sort of the key, is sort of having that homage in the beginning and then slowly going into it and letting it go. Because anybody who's working on a role anyway is gonna alter it over time, even if it's their own.
Good evening, everyone.
Hello.
Monica, I love your work in Ghost Stories.
Thank you.
I was wondering, do you ever go back and rewatch things that you worked on previously, and is it usually in a more critical manner,
Good question. I know that for me, I had a day a few years ago where I was really ill, was really sick, and I was at home, and I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna turn on Netflix and just see what's on Netflix. And it was the first time that I had gone back and watched something that I had done many years ago, and I ended up watching all of Speedgrapher. I thought I was gonna watch like a couple episodes, and I kept watching it, and I was like, I came to this realization as an actor that, hey, I can finally separate myself from that character. I never think of it as me and my friends anymore. It's like, oh, that's Kagura and Saiga, and that's what's happening in the show. And once that revelation came about, then I was way more comfortable going back. And so now if I have a session that's really, you know, dramatic or emotional, and I want to go back and see how it ended up when everybody else is in there, then I will go back and watch things. But there was a period where I couldn't, because I couldn't separate the fact, and I would get really self-conscious. But now I'm like, that's that character's voice. That's not me. Me, anyway, it took me. But still, if I hear my voice on a commentary the whole time, I'm like, how can you guys listen to me?
Hearing the regular voice is the worst, in my opinion.
Because when you speak, your voice resonates in your head. So what I hear in my head sounds more like a Colleen Klinkenbeard. And I know that what you hear, exactly, is a 5-year-old, and that's fine.
I am so critical of myself and such a perfectionist. Anytime I hear anything I've ever done, I just go, oh, I wish I could have done that again. But occasionally I can go, oh my God, that was okay. But I just, even in the booth, I just want to always do everything over again. Because I think it's my dad, who's here, who's an architect, he used to say that when he was in college and studying, they had to turn in these architectural things, and they were just, their buildings and their drawings were on tables, and as they were wheeling it to give it to the exam room, they were still drawing on it. And I always feel like that with my work, like, I always want to go back to the beginning of the series now that I really get the character, and just, really give them more complex life. Sometimes recording goes so fast and you have to get so many loops in an hour that you're just really being efficient and you get it. And then I go back and I'm like, oh, but there's all these subtleties I want to get. So, try and put them into the next sessions.
Once in a while, you'll get to come back and play a character after some years, and it's such a gift. I was a lead in a show called Excel World, and it was one of my first leads. And, I was still pretty new and this and that. But then years later, when we did the movie, I got to go back and play her, and they played my old breath, and I was like horrified. But, at the same time, I felt like I could really come back and do the character more justice now that I had so much more ADR experience.
Awesome show, by the way.
I do. I have listened to stuff. It's funny you're talking about that, because I'm trying to remember when we came back to Slayers, which was after like 10 years. And the only story that I remember is being in the booth and having to do the Dragon Slave, and then getting a phone call in, and it being someone from LA saying, Crispin is here, and he says that the words to the Dragon Slave are wrong in the script. But I was like, don't worry, I have it. And I laughed out loud in the booth, and I was like, don't worry, tell him I got it. I know.
I was upset.
Yeah, you're better, but I had just done it the night before, and I was like, yeah, no, I'm like, give me a pen. I was like, actually, you don't even need to give me a pen. I'm like, I know this one by heart. So it was funny. But yeah, I agree that it's one of those things that as you're working on it, you will listen, and especially coming back as a director, but I think in a way everybody who's on here has the propensity for self-direction of things that they're doing and work that they're doing, is that you think of things you could have done differently, like there's more colors, there's more things that you know. Sometimes you watch something and you're like, oh shoot, I forgot about this, and that was really great. I'm like, when did I do that? Okay. And then sometimes you watch something and you're like, oh shoot, I forgot about that. When did I do that? It just really depends on what you're doing. But when you're listening to something you haven't done in a while, and then you go back to match, you hope you can bring those things. But I think everybody has that experience that we're all trying to adjust and up and keep our game at a certain quality. So when you watch something, you're always wanting to make it better or the best that it is. And occasionally you watch something and you're like, you know what, I really like that. And that's a good thing.
When you've done this for 20 years, you hope you got better over those 20 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? I mean, you hope you improved somewhat. And so sometimes you can go back and listen to early stuff and go, ooh, I could do it so much better now than I did back then. The only thing that lets me sleep at night is when I can hear in my performance that I was doing everything I could. And that's what I try to tell my students, which is, whether you're able to hit the grand slam home run or just a foul ball, if you swung with all your might and you can hear that, you go, you know what? That was the best I could do at the time, and I wasn't holding anything back. I can live with that.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
I have a question regarding my voice. So I'm not really, but my voice is such that when I'm trying to speak to people in normal conversation, I like kind of strain a lot, or they just flat out don't understand it because it tends to blend into that. So my question for you is, what can I do to better make my voice stand out, especially in crowded spaces? It's just impossible.
He's asking what he can do to make his voice stand out, especially in crowded spaces.
So, in terms of vocal production, the single most helpful thing the thing that's been most helpful to me in terms of vocal production is my classical singing training. So I'm classical trained as an opera singer, and there's a notion in operatic singing. There's a quality called squilla, which is a notion of resonance. So I don't know how much you know about harmonics, but when you hit the note on a piano, what you hear initially is the fundamental note. That's the lowest pitch that the note is giving you. But above that are other frequencies, what are called overtones. And there's one at an octave, and then it's like at a fifth and a third, and they stack up. And that's what makes an instrument sound the way it does, right? And so a brass instrument has a different set of overtones than a stringed instrument. Your voice has a different set of overtones. And so what as a singer, as an operatic singer, what you're trying to do is strengthen those overtones so that even though I have a deeper voice, there are these higher frequencies that are ringing as well. And that's what cuts over an orchestra. That's the only way you can sing and be heard over an orchestra. So when I'm hearing you speak, you have a very sort of soft, mellow tone. And I'm not hearing many overtones. And so the notion is that, to demonstrate, if a sine wave, it's just right? It's very clean, fundamental with no overtones. But if I start stacking overtones, it sounds like right? And then suddenly you're like, God damn, shut him up, right? But that's that idea, is it's a coordination of breath support and literally vocal muscle coordination, so that you do it in a healthy way, and so that you can get that cutting sound so people can hear you over stuff. That would be my vote. Is to take singing lessons and what's called legit vocal technique. This is the kind of singing, not in pop songs, but in opera and in traditional musical theater, South Pacific, Oklahoma, that kind of stuff, where they had to sing and carry notes. Yeah.
I wholeheartedly agree. I think that, have you, I know that you studied music at all, or not? Yeah, well, not like yourself. I don't think anybody's, I have not either, but I think that is something, those two lend themselves hand in hand. Like, if you are going to be a voice actor, I highly suggest taking any kind of vocal classes that you can, because you will learn breath support, you'll learn to breathe through the diaphragm, you'll learn different tricks of how to, like...
I could not play Winston if I hadn't had my opera training. It wouldn't happen.
And you'll find that a lot of voice actors come from some sort of musical background.
Okay, so I'm gonna show you something. I'm not.
Show me.
So, where you're talking from right now, your voice is resonating in your face. So what's happening is you're taking shallow breaths right here, and so that's what's happening. Is you can hear what's happening. So one of the things that you can do automatically is just train yourself to let your breath drop into the chest part. Like you can hear when Crispin's speaking, as I'm just comparing masculine voices, you can hear when he speaks, his chest is involved. So all I'm doing, I'm not projecting my voice, but all I'm doing now, I'm gonna, okay, so now I've got no more breath left in my chest. So it's only up here. And now I'm taking little sips, and I can only work up here. But now if I pull air down, just drop air into my chest, then I've got a fully relaxed voice, but you can hear how much more presence I have in it. So it's really just allowing, it's like anything else, like you go to the gym. It's just allowing yourself to be conscious of dropping your air into your chest so that your vocal instrument can actually be placed more in the chest. And that's just kind of from what I hear from where you're at, something you might want to, if you're really interested, really play with. Does that make sense?
Could you hear how there were like overtones? That's what we're going for. That's the squeala.
Yeah, talking with Crispin, that is my training. My training is opera training as well, and legit Broadway training from things. My mentor, she's short of Pavarotti, did a whole bunch of stuff. And one of the things but I mention it because what he's talking about, it sounds very complicated when you do it, but it is exactly what she said. It is breath support, it is placement of where you do things, and it's how you sort of want to relax that, because there's a tendency to, what she's talking about is spreading sound in your resonators. When I was talking about the instrument before, that's what I'm talking about. It's just learning how you make your voice, how you support it, how you put things out, and just where you're spreading sound, or if you're sort of sucking it back in or putting it out. But yeah, I think singing or some kind of a voice training thing, it's a great thing for anybody who wants to be speaking in public.
Yeah, generally speaking, I think that I have more of like I think it's called a head voice or face voice, so it resonates, like you said, a lot in my nasal chamber.
You're a little D-voiced. Right? So G-voiced means that I'm not actually having my chords meet cleanly. I'm letting a little air through my tone. It makes me sound sort of mellow and not threatening. It's very sort of comfy. But if I actually get my chords to meet together cleanly and I start increasing this so there's a little more breath support over what I'm doing, then my chords have to meet more cleanly or I'll blow them open and then I'll sound breathy, right? But if I actually take that breath out of my tone and start using more power, then my voice starts to cut.
And for all of you aspiring voice actors, these are also really great things to know for characterization, because you can change the way your voice sounds.
I was just going to add that you don't have to be a fantastic singer to benefit from vocal placement training. It'll even help you with your character voices. For example, women play a lot of young boy roles on average. So I noticed that when I'm playing a boy, that was one of the best things a director ever told me, was to be aware of that vocal placement. And like Karen was saying, it when you can resonate with that deeper voice, and that's how you get that sound. A lot of people just try to grind and like rasp and force that rasp from your throat, and that's what's you cannot sustain that for like 4 hours.
How's it going?
How's the music now?
So my question is more advice on submitting a professional resume to other studios. I've done some work with like a few studios, most of which I can't talk about. But, like, what is some advice of like when I have the resume and want to get my new demo finished? What would be my best options to submit?
I always tell people who are interested in submitting to agencies, specifically like in Dallas, I'm sure that now it's probably all digital. You probably just send files in, but I tell them that they need to create a packet, the same way that we used to back in the day. And you should send them a drive that has your demos on it, and send them a picture if you want to do on camera, and send them an actual like tangible thing, because then that makes you stand out from everyone else who's just sent an email with their demos attached. If you have a really nice package that you've sent with a cover letter and thanking them for their time and their consideration, that kind of, those little bitty things add up. And I mean, granted, in the end, it all comes down to your talent, but they're not going to ignore those little things either. Those can only go in your favor.
I'd also say, and I think this actually goes for any profession, is be persistent. Don't just send it once and go, I sent it, I never heard back. follow up with it. I mean, don't be annoying, you know, don't be that person, but, you know, follow it up after a few weeks with a call or an email. Did you get this? You know, and if they say yes, thank you, okay, fine. But if they say, yeah, you know, get back to us, then get back to them. But if you don't hear anything, just I'd say be persistent. Because this business, everybody is so busy, and agents get so many submissions. And I mean, I even know, like, I offer to help friends with stuff, and I tell them, like, I'm so busy, I might not answer your email in the first week. Like, if you do not hear back from me, don't take it personally. Just email me again in 2 weeks, because people get so busy, people in studios, and production companies, agencies. It's just, on a busy day, if your email goes through that day and they don't have an organized fashion to get back to it, sometimes stuff slips through the cracks. So I'd say, like, and this is, I think, any business these days, but be respectfully persistent.
Thank you.
Last 5 minutes. Okay, quick question. I've heard, you know, when your character gets shot, electrocuted, set on fire, drowned, etc., etc. Has there ever been like an epic or just a voice line in general that surprised you when you were in the booth that you weren't particularly expecting or took you by surprise?
To be self-destruct line, because you know what I'm talking about.
I'd say it's almost the antithesis of that is what has not surprised me.
There was one session in particular that I can remember. It was for the first Ushio in Toro way back when. And I played a river weasel who took on the form of a sexy lady. Thanks. It's my inner river weasel goddess. Yay. I can't even say river weasel. But she was stuck under a car that was on fire in an avalanche. What? And they were like, so watch this, and okay, there you go, now react to picture. And I'm like, my acting training did not prepare me for this. So you just have to kind of trust your instincts and go and do whatever comes out and hope that maybe it sounds like a river weasel under a car on fire in an avalanche.
I'll be specific.
I don't think anything's. What surprised me once is I was cast as Multiple Man in Wolverine and the X-Men, and Multiple Man can make multiple versions of himself. And by the end of the episode, there's like 100 versions of him fighting all of the X-Men. And I think why they cast me as him is because he has to do a lot of fighting efforts, and I'm known for doing pretty good fighting efforts. What I didn't realize is I only had 20 of them, because I'm never really called on to do more than 20. But in this one episode, I had to do 300. And they were all in a line. And so I was like, oh, I can do this. And then we'd like record 20 or 30 of them. And then we'd go listen back. And nope, 2 sounds like 11. And 15 sounds like 24. And I was like, oh shit. And so I had to go back. And literally, we'd do a run. And then we'd listen. I go, and I'd hear it. I'd be like, no, I got to pick up 4, 9, 12, and 21. And then go back and do that. And so I was sweating bullets. It's one of the hardest sessions I've ever done, because you suddenly realize that you actually do start repeating your sound efforts, and I couldn't get away with that. So yeah, it's a good episode.
What made us start voice acting?
I don't know about everybody else, but I would say that it's usually the... I know, because I come from stage, so I'm like that. But that's it, I come from stage. I think all of us have done theater, or most of us have done theater in some respect, and so it's kind of just a different aspect of theater. I mean, like, you're an actor, you're just going to a different side of the acting realm.
Agree with that.
If you want to know the nitty gritty, there's like early on in my podcast, I think it's episode 4 and 5, I have like a 2-part thing about how I broke into the industry, so you can hear all the gory details.
I always feel like it's disappointing to people because they assume that we've spent our whole lives going, I want to be a voice actor. And I'm like, I just wanted to be an actor. And I say that's probably the best place to start. Just be an actor, because you never know where you're going to
You have such a cute voice, by the way.
Can we do both?
Yeah.
Guys, I'm so sorry. I want to get this guy to ask his question. I learned so much from these people waiting in this line. I think I don't even have to ask mine. I just want to say, Kira, for ADA, I don't know if you remember her, Melissa Sternenberg. She always acts in my series. She wanted me to say clap.
Oh, I love Melissa.
You're up there. All right. Thank you so much.
I appreciate what you do. My question is, what's your favorite role that you've done?
Right now, it's sort of a toss-up between Winston in Overwatch and Sume in Wolf's Rain.
You're asking us to choose between our children. It's like Sophie's choice.
Oh, I'll choose. I don't care. I think 2B is probably the most special to me, but then Talim is also very special.
You guys are
I can't pick because I play all the best girls.
I'm always going to wind up either saying Lena or Diva because they were my first babies.
All right, well, thanks, everyone. I appreciate you coming to the panel, and I know we probably all have autographs and panels tomorrow, so hopefully you'll check the schedule and join us for those, and have a wonderful rest of your convention.
You guys, thank you for the great questions.
Yes,